This is Daniel, and in this video we're gonna discuss about two different types of topics in brain, which are hormones and brain imaging techniques. We're gonna start off with hormones. Let's get started. Neurons can quickly deliver the brain's messages to precise targets in the body using action potentials, chemical neurotransmitters, and long extending axons, as discussed in the previous few videos. Hormones, on the other hand, deliver messages more slowly, but it can affect a larger set of tissues, which can produce large-scale changes in the metabolism, growth, and behavior. So two parts in the nervous system controls the hormones. The first one is hypothalamus, which oversees the production and release of many hormones through its close ties to the pituitary gland, which is the second organ. Some of the hormones that pituitary gland and hypothalamus communicates and produces include growth hormones here, which contributes to one's height or growth in the childhood stages, or muscle growth too, and other sexual developmental hormones too, and thyroid stimulating hormone, which contributes to overall metabolism. Now, the types of hormones that are released by the pituitary gland are different based on if it is released from anterior pituitary or posterior pituitary. The hormones that we discussed earlier, such as growth hormones or gonadotropins, the sexual developmental hormones, are all released from anterior pituitary. On the other hand, from the posterior pituitary, the main hormone that is released is oxytocin, which promotes uterine contractions during labor and milk release during nursing. And this is the end of the discussion in hormones, which is very short. So we'll actually continue to another topic, which is brain imaging techniques. There are several different types of brain imaging techniques, such as MRI or CT, that you'll be already familiar with, but there are also some other techniques that are invasive or ineffective or effective in some cases that helps the neuroscientists and doctors to deal with the patients and help them release their pain and cure them. So the first one is fMRI, which is functional MRI, that is used to follow changes in the brain activity of a person lying inside the MRI scanner. It detects blood flow as well as differences in oxygen rich and oxygen poor blood, based on the idea that more active regions of the brain need more oxygen and nutrients, which are supplied by fresh oxygenated blood. The next one is positron emission tomography, which is PET. It detects short-lived radioactive compounds that have been injected into the bloodstream intentionally. The radioactive compounds could be oxygen, glucose, or it could be a neurotransmitter, and PET traces where these compounds go. The location of labeled oxygen or other radioactive compounds can indicate blood flow, while a labeled neurotransmitter can show which brain regions are using that signaling molecule. PET can also detect amyloid plaques that are hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. It has good temporal resolution, but it lacks a detailed spatial resolution, meaning it is fast, but it lacks a detailed space resolution. Next ones are MEG and EEG, which is electroencephalography. While fMRI provides an indirect view of neuron activity, magnetoencephalography, MEG, detects actual electrical currents coursing through groups of neurons. When the neuron activities are synchronized, their combined electrical currents produce weak magnetic fields because they are electric currents. that MEG equipment can detect. MEG has been useful in a variety of studies about how the auditory cortex responds to sounds, or identifying where the epileptic seizures start in a patient's brain. Now, MEG is useful for detecting rapid changes in the brain activity, but it does not provide the precise location of that activity. So researchers can combine MEG data with fMRI data to obtain good anatomical detail from fMRI and high-speed readings of brain activity from MEG. EEG is also a fast brain imaging technique, but it also lacks the spatial information like MEG. The difference is that MEG records the magnetic field and magnetic direction of the neuron activities, while EEG, electroencephalography, actually records the actual electrical changes in the neurons. So CT scans are very common. And I'll just briefly discuss about that. So CT scans use an X-ray source that rotates along the person's body and uses a computer to put them together and form a X-ray map of that person to create the brain image. Now let's talk about deep brain stimulation, which is DBS. So DBS uses electrodes, and those electrodes are surgically embedded in specific brain regions, so this procedure is very invasive. Depending on the location that the electrodes are placed, DBS devices can assist in alleviating the symptoms of some brain disorders by intentionally stimulating certain brain parts through activating electrodes. Interesting part is that during most of these implantation surgeries of the electrodes, patients remain awake so that a neurologist can talk to them and ensure that the electrodes are stimulating the correct locations. So while the patient's head is held in place with a stereotactic frame, the surgeon drills a dime-sized hole or smaller in the skull. Then a thin insulated wire with electrodes at the tip or along the shaft is inserted deep into the brain. In a separate surgery, a battery-operated pulse generator is implanted in the upper chest and connected to the electrodes as shown in the right side photo. When the device is turned on, it starts sending electrical signals that alter the activity of the targeted brain cells. So in many movement disorders, an abnormal signal or pulse can gain control of a circuit and can easily become magnified. For example, if someone is shouting in a crowded room, this aberrant signal can drown out other activity. DBS interrupts the shouting so the normal communication can continue. The last one is TMS, the transcranial magnetic stimulation, where a coil that generates a magnetic field is placed near a person's head, and the magnetic field can penetrate the skull temporarily to activate or silence the region of the cortex. This is used to treat anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and it could be an effective solution for patients with conditions that do not respond to medications. So during TMS therapy, patients sit in a chair while a nurse or technician places a magnetic stimulator against their head. So the device painlessly delivers brief magnetic pulses to the brain, and it is very highly targeted. For patients with depression, pulses are focused over their left prefrontal cortex, and here they can generate electrical currents among neurons, which over time help lift the patient's mood. Now, one more thing about DBS I forgot to mention, that it is very highly invasive and potential complications include infection or stroke or bleeding in the brain. It also requires regular neurological follow-up and battery changes every 3 to 4 years. Thank you for watching this video. This has been a little longer video than the other ones, but I hope this was helpful for you guys. Again, thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye.